Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Op-Ed Average podcast, where we have a lot of opinions, but most of them are pretty average. First things first, I'm Monica.
And I'm Anna. Last fall, we did an episode on true crime, the murdery kind. It was pretty well received by our one listener. Just kidding, our listeners. So we thought we'd do it again, but since it's not, Halloween or fall or, and it's spring and it's nice and sunny outside, we thought we'd do a couple of little, I don't know, Mont is pretty murdery, but I guess a little bit, a little less scary than the ones we did in the fall. So yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do it. So like last time, Anna and I, we chose one case to cover. My case is about Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Mhm.
So have you heard of her case before?
So I don't know it I think when there's big cases like that, always kind of know and kind of have it in the back of my head, kind of what happened, but I don't know the full details. And I know that I don't know if it's okay. Hopefully it's not a spoiler alert or whatever. It's big right now because she just got out of jail, right? So it's the story's back, it's being told again and such. So yeah, it's definitely a good time to cover it. So for those that don't know, and I do have to say, Av didn't know who she was. So he was like,
perfect. So he can listen to this. And
who is this lady? It's all over the news the last few weeks, right? So yeah.
In preparations for this case, I watched there's, what is it called? Dramatizations of this case, and there's also documentaries and stuff like that.
Love those.
So I'm gonna try and cover everything. There's a lot, but I'll try and get the gist of it. This true crime case begins with a very devoted mother taking her sick baby to the doctor for sleep apnea. Her daughter's name, well, I mean, I guess she called her baby. I guess she was like a toddler by that time.
Oh, wow.
And her daughter's name was Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And by the time that Gypsy Rose was a toddler, she was already wearing a CPAP. And for those who don't know what a CPAP is, it's literally a machine that helps pump in air through your nose to help you get oxygen, because some people, when they sleep, I guess it gets lodged here and you can't get enough oxygen when they sleep.
Right. And it's also known for people that are, of course, older people that snore loudly, right? And it helps with that, right?
Yeah.
It's an old person thing. That's what I think of.
But Miss Gypsy Rose Blanchard is not an old person. She's 5 or something when she got it. Poor Gypsy was also seen and treated for things like leukemia, muscular dystrophy, which is basically the weakening of your muscles, seizures, asthma, hearing and visual impairments, and she got a bunch of surgeries for those things.
Wow.
The surgeries didn't really end there either. They took out her salivary glands.
What's that?
She got I think that's the stuff that makes saliva in your mouth.
Wow.
I don't know why you would remove those, but for some reason they had them taken out. And in addition to that, she also had a feeding tube put into her stomach, and that's how she ate most of her food, because she also had no teeth because they fell out because they rotted, and they had to extract them all. So she could only eat soft foods, and any other food would be just directly pumped into her stomach. She had no hair. She was bald, and she was in a wheelchair for most of her life. She could actually walk. Bizarre to say, you're in a wheelchair, but you can actually walk. The fact of the matter was that Gypsy wasn't actually impaired at all. She was not sick at all. She was also only bald because her mom, Dee Dee Blanchard, insisted on shaving her hair off. Dee Dee, her mom, she insisted on a lot of things. She took Gypsy to a lot of different doctors, and it was because she believed her daughter had so many illnesses, like the ones that I was mentioning earlier. She insisted running all these tests on Gypsy to do all of these procedures because she was convinced that her daughter was sick and she needed help. She was just a doting mother who was only trying to take care of her baby. You know how, like, you're a mom, like, you'd do
Oh my
anything
god,
for your son.
of course, and I
But
would
I
be
do
so freaked out, like, just the stuff that you're naming is,
yeah.
like, insane, like, do you know what it takes to have a feeding tube?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
that's no joke, like, that is a major thing, so
Yeah.
that's crazy. I'd be
Right.
scared if my kid really had all that stuff,
I mean,
basically.
most parents are already scared if they just have the flu.
Yeah, of, like, one of those things, let
Yeah.
alone, like, the
Yeah.
number of things that you've, like, listed here.
Right. So, I mean, Dee Dee, she's a devoted mom. She just wants to take care of her kid. So it was so shocking to hear when news reported finding Dee Dee murdered in her own home with no sign of Gypsy. Someone just left behind her wheelchair.
So a murder.
And so it's kind of murdery. But we won't cover like the actual murder too much. This is like everything that just led up to this murder.
Okay.
So, according to experts, Dee Dee, the mom, she was actually suffering her own kind of mental illness called Munchausen syndrome by
Yes.
proxy.
Yeah.
It's also known as factitious disorder imposed on another. Literally, that's like
Oh,
FDIA.
I didn't know that there was, like, by proxy.
Yes.
Like,
So
I
this is
thought
what happened.
gotcha. Because 'Cause I've
Yeah.
heard of people I'm not even gonna, like, attempt to pronounce it, but I've heard of people thinking that other people have it because
Mhm.
they, have, like, wild stuff happening, but I didn't know that you can, like, kind of project that to someone else, but I could see that it's probably super easy to do for a very small child that can't, speak for themselves.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So in this case, yeah, Dee Dee was the person who acts as if an individual, her daughter, that they're taking care of them because they have a physical or mental illness of some
Mhm.
sort, but when they're not actually sick at all. So, I mean, how was Gypsy even going to the doctors and getting all these treatments? Because if she wasn't sick,
Right,
why
like,
did
and
they
why
do
were
all these
they
things?
yeah, yeah, like, how did they I mean, like, do you know what you have to go through to get surgery for anything?
Right.
Like,
I
yeah.
mean, you're signing something.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
have
yeah,
records
yeah.
of that
Like,
somehow.
people doctors are examining you to
Right.
determine that you actually so how did they is are we getting into that, or should I
Mhm.
ask that question later? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna get into it. So,
Okay.
some sources say that Dee Dee had nurses training, so she actually knew a lot
Oh.
about, like, symptoms, so
Mhm.
she knew how to tell those to medical professionals, so they even though they couldn't, like, see it or, like, tests weren't showing him, I guess, they were just believing this frantic mother who's claiming that their daughter was sick with actual symptoms that made sense based on what she was saying.
Right, and it's a
Like
kid, right? So it's
yeah,
like there's I think, like, the sympathy level is higher when it comes to a
right,
child, so
right,
it's not that hard and who would think, right? Who would think that,
mhm,
like, someone was lying about all these things?
right, and I'm sure the doctors, they're well certified, well qualified, but, sometimes they would just look at you and be like, "You're fine."
Yeah,
You would end up going to the doctor in person, like, I've got to the doctor, and they're like, "You're fine."
right, right.
But Dee Dee, she took it another step further where, yeah, she would tell new people, new doctors about Gypsy and how she's sick, and she would literally give Gypsy different types of medication to exhibit said
Like those
symptoms.
symptoms, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, she's drowsy or she's, like, mentally impaired or, like, I guess she wasn't breathing properly or whatever.
Be, like, grateful for a healthy child, you know what I mean? Like
Right. So I guess the whole thing with like her mental illness, her wanting to be a good caretaker, like she had something to prove. In the dramatizations that I watched, it was implying that, her own mom didn't believe that she could take care of her baby, and I guess she would put her baby in these situations to prove that she could take care of her, heal her, and make her feel better,
Right. It's
and
like
she just
extremes.
yeah, she would
Yeah.
just continually putting her baby in, some kind of sickness or believe she was sick so that she could, "Oh, let me nurse her back to health so I could prove
Right,
that
right.
I'm a good mom," type of thing. Yeah, so after, giving medication to make her fake symptoms, um, there were probably some doctors and family and friends, including the father of Gypsy,
That's
so Dee Dee's
right.
husband,
Yeah.
um, they were, like, questioning it. It's like, "I think she's fine. What do you mean? Like, she
Right,
doesn't look
right.
sick." Um, but when those type of questions came up, Dee Dee would actually take Gypsy with her and move away from those people who questioned it.
Oh,
Uh
shoot.
So they didn't really give them time to look into it more
Mhm.
or help her out.
And she
Um
was doing this for a long time, right, Mon? Like, so,
Mhm.
you said, like, at 2 years old, she already had a CPAP. So
Yes,
how old was like, when Dee Dee passed, how old was Gypsy Rose?
I think she was, like, 19 or
Oh, so
20.
it's, like, a really long she's playing the long game, Dee Dee is.
Yes. So actually Gypsy is my age or around my age. She was born in 1991,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, so kind of trying to imagine, like, going through that from your when you were born until you were, like, 20, it's just
Right.
crazy.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you would think that the older that Gypsy got, the more skeptical people would be because she would be a full-fledged adult by at least, like, 18, so she
Right,
would be able
right.
to say what she feels, to, like,
Mhm.
doctors. They would see her, like, separately because she's an adult.
Yeah, yeah.
So Dee Dee would actually fake Gypsy's age. S
Oh, I did not see, I totally didn't know this stuff.
Mhm. And she did this by, confusing, medical professionals. Like, obviously, Dee Dee has a Gypsy's birth certificate. Around the time that, they were covering this story, it was after Hurricane Katrina, and I guess they lived in that area,
Oh, so
and they
her records could
claimed
have been lost,
yes. So
which is valid, I
yeah,
guess,
and that
yeah.
happened to a lot of people.
Right, right.
So, there was, like, mismatch between her birth certificate versus the Medicare that,
Freaking Dee Dee.
Gypsy was getting. I don't know,
Uh,
she's a smart one.
yeah,
She's
yeah.
diabolical, that
Right,
one.
right.
Yeah, she would go around and be like, "Oh, well, either I got confused or whatever, but my
Right.
baby's, like, only 16 years old or 14 years old," when in reality, she was
And she
probably,
would
like,
call her
18.
baby?
Mhm.
Oh,
"Yeah,
okay,
my
until
poor
she was, like, a
baby."
teenager and stuff like that.
She probably got questioned, and the story really began when, in 2008, so this is, like, pretty recently.
Right, right.
In 2008, Dee Dee and Gypsy, they moved into this new neighborhood, in Missouri. Is that how you say it? Missouri?
Where's Lisa?
Mis
That wait,
Lisa, help us
That's
out.
different. That's
I know, that's not
Minnesota, which is in
Minnesota.
Yeah, never
That's a
mind.
completely different accent. But
Missouri.
yeah, Missouri. So Habitat for Humanity, I don't know if you've heard about that
Of
organization, but
course.
they
Yeah,
make,
they,
like,
like,
little
build houses,
yeah,
for people that need it and stuff like that,
right.
right?
So they did it for this neighborhood, and they built a
Mhm.
house for Gypsy and her mom, and it was pink, it had a wheelchair ramp on it, because
Oh, because she's in a
Gypsy was in a
wheelchair,
wheelchair,
yeah.
and everyone believed she was in a wheelchair and she needed it. And it was like a quiet neighborhood, not too many people. Everyone's just kind of doing their own thing because they're all in need of help and just trying to
Right,
get
right.
by. After hearing like the struggles of Gypsy, and she's like she's basically relying on her mom. Um, even things like, oh, she's allergic to sugar. She can't have any sugar at all. Some people were kind of concerned about Gypsy's well-being. So, Some people, they placed, like, anonymous, calls to, social workers, I guess, and
Like,
caseworkers would come
I
and
think it's
visit.
like CPS, right? Like the
Mhm.
Child Protective Services.
Right, and they would
Yeah,
do, like,
okay.
well-being checks, but, whenever they would come and visit, Dee Dee was always prepared. She knew exactly what to do. She would medicate, Gypsy before the caseworker arrived, or at least entered, enough so that, Gypsy couldn't really,
Like, speak for
just
herself
speak for
or
herself. She was, like,
right.
too jazzy, but she would always tell people that Gypsy had, like, the mind of a seven-year-old, even though she was much older than that, came off as, like,
Younger,
very younger and
immature.
immature, and, she can't possibly speak for herself, so let her mother do it for her. And, she was Dee Dee was very good at convincing these caseworkers that everything was fine.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
she's been
nothing
at it
wrong.
for years,
Yes.
right? She's well practiced.
But, Gypsy, she got older, and she was somehow no longer 16, and even whenever she would bring up her birthday, Gypsy was like, "I thought you said I was 18 or 16 or
Oh,
whatever."
wow. Uh-huh.
And so she just got more curious. Even through all this thing, and she has a wheelchair, Gypsy's not dumb. She knew she could walk, and she did walk around the house when no
Mhm.
one was looking at him.
Holy.
So, she didn't really look into it, I guess. She just walked around. She accepted the fact that her mom would shave her head, but she believed a lot of the things that
Yeah, I
her mom
mean,
told her.
I wouldn't doubt it because she was a child. I mean, this
Mhm,
started when she was a baby, like 2 years
mhm.
old or whatever, before that probably. So it's like ingrained in her that
Yep.
there's something wrong with her. And I kind of feel like her mom, Dee Dee, probably kept her pretty sheltered so that
Mhm,
like she didn't know any better. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
it was
Yeah,
normal.
she was homeschooled, so she didn't really have too much interaction with other kids.
Mhm.
She was basically attached to her hip, so she wouldn't be, like,
Right, right.
going
Exposed to
around.
other things.
Yeah, and, one of the things was that her mom convinced her that she was allergic to sugar, but, curiosity got the best of Gypsy, and she tried something with sugar, and,
Zing.
she she realized, "I'm not gonna die, I don't need my
Right, right.
EpiPen."
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so one thing led to another, and Gypsy was like, "If she lied about me being allergic to sugar, what else could she be
Right.
lying about?" So, by the time she was 19 years old, Gypsy, she tried to run away from her mom and her home. She tried to run away with a man that she met at a comic book convention, or like a sci-fi
What?
convention. She was like really into, like, princesses
Uh-huh.
and magic and
Wow.
all that, like, stuff, because, from birth, she was, like, just living in this fantastical world
Right,
and
right.
everything that her mom created for her. So, she was very into that stuff, and she went to a convention, and she ran into this guy who was nice and kind, and she hadn't had, like, much,
Right, right. It
male
probably
interaction.
doesn't take much, right? Because her
Mhm.
interaction was so little. Like
Right.
any male that gives her a little bit of attention,
She's
she's
like,
gonna
"Ooh."
stick to, yeah. "What's
Right.
your
Yeah.
name?"
Yeah, exactly, and I guess they hit it off from that convention. They, like, kept contact, but she didn't have a phone, she didn't have a laptop. Gypsy was so into this guy that she made sure to secretly get a phone, secretly
Oh.
get a laptop without her mom knowing, so that she could keep in contact with him,
So
and I
she's no
guess
dummy.
no, she was actually, like, very smart and becoming more and more
Yeah,
aware of
yeah.
her situation, and yeah,
So she got
so
a phone, she got a laptop.
and they kept in contact. They were, like, flirting here and there, connecting, and, you know, she was so infatuated with the guy that
Oh, yeah.
she wanted to go run away with him, her prince. She fell in love. Yeah, she ran away, and, like, when a mom is worried about her child, she won't do anything short of, like, nothing to go and
Yeah, to
find
find
her.
her. Right, right.
And, I think she went through like mutual friends, someone who went to the convention and found out where this guy lives. And yeah, her mom found Gypsy at this man's house and took her back home. She told the guy that actually she was still a minor. She wasn't, she's 19. But she
Mhm.
was like, "How dare you? You don't know what she's going through. And I won't make you stop seeing your boyfriend or whatever. Just come home." Yeah, that was the last time that Gypsy ever saw the guy because
Oh, okay.
Dee Dee was so upset that she actually locked Gypsy in a shed in their backyard,
Oh,
and it was
well,
like a
she
just
that
Mhm,
must have scared the crap out of Dee Dee, though, because although for sure she's wrong, right? Like,
mhm,
excuse me, like, all this for years and years, but, like, with that, Dee Dee's probably, like, how to she knows how to do certain things that I did not teach her, or
right.
where did she learn? If she got out, she has a phone and she has a laptop, there's a lot more that she can do than just run away.
Right. So, locking her up in a shed with nothing but like a bed and like a little bit of food and water, like enough to like punish her,
Uh-huh.
for betraying her mom and betraying her trust and all of that stuff. But Gypsy only grew more resentful.
Of
She
course.
she created a Facebook account, a secret Facebook account. She also created a profile on a Christian dating website.
Wow.
And
So
that's
did
where
her and the guy break up, like, at this point? Like, is it
uh,
done or
it was more like a fling, I guess.
okay.
It didn't really go anywhere, but like that runaway thing. I guess when he was told that she was a minor, he was like, "Oh no, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah, I don't
not
wanna
my
touch
thing."
this, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think he ever got in contact with her again. But on this dating Christian website, that's where Gypsy met a man named Nicholas Godejohn. So we'll call him Nick. And
So this
Gypsy
is the
and Nick,
guy.
this is the guy.
Okay, okay.
Gypsy and Nick, they grow a lot closer and closer online. They're obviously on a dating website, so they're looking for love, I guess.
Right.
And they were sharing a lot of intimate things between each other on phone video calls, I guess.
Whoa.
He lived in yeah, they shared actually a lot of things online.
Wow.
But Gypsy, in a moment of like trust and intimacy, Gypsy told Nick about her dire situation about being basically trapped with her over controlling mom.
Mhm.
And, Nick exchanged another truth about himself. He had an undiagnosed bipolar disorder.
Perfect.
So what a pairing. They're both like, "It's okay. I still love
Yeah.
you anyway."
Right, right.
And not to say that those kind of situations you would never fall in love, but in this situation, yes, Nick and Gypsy fell in love and they were very, very desperate to see one another and be together. Nick told her that he loved her, he wanted to marry her, he wanted to start a family with her, and that he would do anything for Gypsy,
Ooh,
including killing her mother. So in 2015, Nick made his way to Gypsy's house after, planning things. And
right.
when Gypsy gave him the signal, she let him inside her house in the middle of the night with a knife that Gypsy got for him. And Nick went ahead and murdered Dee Dee in her sleep.
Wow.
Um, so directly, like Gypsy wasn't the one who, was doing the killing, but
Right, right, so she didn't
um,
physically kill her mom.
right, but she was very clearly like she let him in and let him do it.
Right.
Um, and after that, Nick and Gypsy ran away back to Nick's home in Wisconsin. And, it didn't take too long for the police to find them. Gypsy thought it would be a good idea to make a Facebook post on the same account that she shared with her mom. So
Whoa.
it's the one that, they use to like talk about her updates and, the successes they've had with like her health or whatever.
Mhm.
They decided to put a status and it said that bitch is dead. Like
Nice.
as if
Jesus.
like like I think she was trying to say that, like, someone hacked into the profile
Uh-huh.
and that, it's to
Someone else did it.
signal yeah, that to signal that, like, "Hey, maybe you should go check on Dee Dee and her daughter." She wanted
Oh,
to
so,
actually
like, the
send somebody
police
there.
didn't even know that, like, it had happened, so they killed her and then they, like, took off, basically.
Right, yeah, and
Okay.
I can't really get a gist of, like, how long between, like, the day that they killed her mom to
Mhm.
when she moved to, Nick's home, but, yeah, the police were able to locate them because of those posts. They still had the location on,
Oh my
in
god.
in their Facebook post, so they went to where the location was set, and they found Nick at the house, and they assumed that Nick had kidnapped Gypsy because all they
Ah,
saw in the house was a dead mom and an empty wheelchair and no Gypsy. So
right,
it's
right.
like, "Oh, no,
So they
this
didn't
girl
even they
who's"
didn't even suspect her at first.
No, because she's supposed to be this impaired
Frail, yeah.
child who can't walk and so sick that, like, how could she have possibly been involved?
Right, right.
Um, and, to their surprise, Nick walks out with a very able gypsy, and they were both arrested and tried together for the murder of her mom. When they were interrogating them separately, Gypsy initially said that, like, "Oh, I had nothing to do with it. I had no idea that he was going to do it. I love my mom and that I would never want to hurt her. He did it and blah blah blah." And then poor Nick, I mean, I can't even say poor Nick cuz he
Right,
he
right.
he willingly killed the mom for the love of Gypsy. But Nick was like, with his little mental disorder, like he was saying he loved Gypsy so much, he wouldn't to do anything for her, and that he was saving her, and he wanted to save his princess and
Right,
stuff like
right. Oh
that.
my god, this is heavy. Like, you
And
don't even know what to yeah.
while Gypsy was claiming she had nothing to do with it, Nick admitted that Gypsy told him to do it. Um, Gypsy was aware and that she told him that she needed saving. And so, they interrogated her more and she finally broke and was like, "Yes, he did it. I didn't do it. He wanted to do it." And, she was still trying to spin it like she had nothing to do. She had no bad intent towards her
Mhm.
mom. And eventually, she admitted to being a part of it, but it was through self-defense because she was essentially a hostage to her mom for her entire life. Like,
Right, right.
she was conditioned into believing she was weak and frail and unable, when in reality, she was just being, forced into playing this role so that her mom looked like a devoted caretaker and that everyone loved her for it. And so, you know, I think after a lot of interrogation, Gypsy eventually pled guilty in 2016 for second degree murder, and she was
Wow.
sentenced to 10 years in prison. And then to the current day, she's actually served most of her sentence
Mhm.
until she was like recently released in
Right,
December of 2023, like literally just a few months ago.
right.
And I guess it was for good behavior or whatever. On the flip side, Nick was found guilty of first degree murder, and he did receive a life sentence in prison. No death
Wow.
penalty, no probation, just
Yeah, it is
or
what it
parole.
is.
It's just, yeah, he's guilty. After Gypsy was released, people were obviously reading into this case, and she is still in fact healthy. She's not impaired. Her hair is grown out, and
Right, right.
she's done so many different interviews because everyone wants to know what really happened.
Mhm.
And in one of her many interviews, I think it was on Dr. Phil, she stated, "I'm glad that I'm out of that situation, but I'm not happy she's dead." And she's referring to her mom.
And she does look like there's, like, a lot of stuff, excuse me, going on because of the stuff that her mom did to her. Like, her
Yeah.
teeth kinda look funny,
Mhm.
and, I'm sure those are all, like, fake teeth, right? Because her mom
Yeah,
like, had them
they
all
gave her
pulled
dentures.
out, and, just, like, can't describe it because we'll, like, post or, like, include photos or but she doesn't seem I guess, like, her appearance doesn't seem normal or it
Right.
seems altered because probably of all the stuff that she's gone through. She's definitely not I mean, she I don't know. I guess we can get into this, Mon, but like what do you think? Like I know like there's a lot of like sympathizers
Mhm.
for Gypsy Rose and I think like she's gotten, I mean, by financially on help from people that like believe her story and all that kind of stuff. But there's also that whole thing out there where she basically like masterminded this whole thing. And
Mhm.
so I know that that's like a big topic of conversation because she's out and free and normal now. So
Yeah. I know, like, she spent her life with her mom, like, convincing everyone that she has the mental abilities of, like, a seven-year-old child,
right.
but clearly, even, like, through all of that, like, Gypsy was, like, really smart in, like, planning all those things.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
definitely.
without having to, like, watch, like, too many true crime stories or,
Yeah, yeah.
like, getting any ideas from it was just a weird situation because yeah, someone would ask, like, "Well, why if you were able to walk, why weren't you just, like
Walk
why couldn't you
away.
just stand up in front of people and say that her mom is a liar?"
Right,
It's
right. Or
like
ask for help or like,
yeah, but, like,
yeah.
and most people in those situations who have been living with an abuser their entire life, they were, like, conditioned to, like,
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like you couldn't be trusted, no one will believe you, you went along with this, you're just as guilty as she is.
Yeah.
Because like, through all of this, everyone knew Dee Dee and Gypsy as, like, this pairing, and they were inspirational, people gave them money, they had,
Right.
like, so much money, like, invested in them that it's like, oh, she felt, like, guilty for
Mhm.
having to lie to all these people, but, to break the image and then suddenly be like, "Well, why would we even believe you now? You lied to us all this time."
Right, right.
So, she never told anybody, and, I'm obviously not condoning, like, killing somebody. I feel like Gypsy did take advantage of Nick and his situation. I feel like, yeah, maybe she did love him, but she was very well aware that he had, like, mental
Yeah,
issues and
it's like he fell on her lap and it was like the perfect person to be
yeah,
able to manipulate because he's not, he has his own mental issues. So, she found someone that I think someone of like a regular sound mind, you probably couldn't convince to kill someone for you.
right,
That's not like a normal thing. So
right.
it's just like she definitely has she's not dumb, I'm sure there was manipulation there, but yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's just like she definitely was abused and super unfortunate and all that. And I don't know. I don't think her mom probably deserved to die, but it's just bad all around. Like it's such a
Right,
bad like situation. Like no one's
right.
innocent in it, I think.
You can only hope that people would walk away from these situations unharmed and, people get the punishment that they deserve in the way that Dee Dee died. But yeah, I think that Gypsy as a whole, she's trying to take the angle of like, I'm a survivor and I'm gonna live life since I wasn't allowed to live my life for the last 20.
And she's
So
profiting from this now, you know what
oh,
I
I'm
mean? Now that
sure.
she's out, I kind of like I didn't really follow it, but like there was like some backlash already. How she's like milking a cow, I mean, like
Mhm,
it's not like I isn't she like she has a boyfriend
mhm,
and people are like a little apprehensive or think the guy's a little bit sketchy himself, but I'm sure there's like interviews and book deals and all that kind of stuff
mhm.
that she's gonna cash on. I mean, she doesn't have like it's not like she can just go to work and like, have
Right,
like a regular profession or whatever.
right,
But she's definitely like using it to her advantage at this point, I think.
right,
But
right, right.
but also like what else is she supposed to do?
Yeah,
She has to survive.
she doesn't have any schooling, she doesn't have a degree,
Right.
she can only go by, at least for now, yeah, her fame, I guess is what you
Mhm.
could say, and people who are supportive of her. And, there's just people out there with money to spend, and they choose to give it to someone like Gypsy.
Yeah.
And yeah, the story was crazy all around. And the fact that it only happened like a few years ago and
Yeah,
she was
yeah,
just
it's not,
released.
like, old or anything, so
Yeah. But yeah, any of the stuff that I used to look up this case, we'll add it in like the
yeah,
description box
yeah.
and stuff. But it's a really interesting case. I'm sure there's like more details to it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
if you guys have any, like, opinions or thoughts or, there's a lot of people that, like, have completely dug deep into this case. Like, it's very, very well known. So, like, share your thoughts with us because that's always, like, really, really interesting.
Anna, what's your case on?
Okay, so interestingly enough, Mon, like listening to the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case, this one is not super far from what
Oh,
you just described, but it's not murdery, but
oh,
it's still like super interesting. So this is a case about a woman named Amanda Riley. And the reason I don't listen to like a ton of podcasts or true crimes, I like more watch true crime stuff, but for some reason I was on like Spotify and I came across it, and the thing that really stood out to me was that it took place in the South Bay, so like San Jose area. So that,
oh.
like, of course, when you see that, it's just like, wait a minute,
Like
that's like, yeah, it's local to us, right? So it's
it's
like,
like the other case that you covered. It's like just
yeah,
super
so it's just like, it's
local.
like Filipino,
Mhm.
California, that type of thing. So this one, like that whole thing pretty much just drew me in. So there is a podcast out there called Scamanda. And it's
Mm.
basically two were a play on a scam and Amanda. So it's Amanda Riley. So Amanda, first, so I'll just tell you guys a little bit about her. She's a devout Christian, a wife, and a mother of one son when this all first started in her late 20s. So, she's living in the South Bay, just living her life, and all that kind of stuff. And then in 2012, she started a blog about her cancer journey. So she announced that she was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma at the time.
Oh.
And this is the time where like vlogging, I don't think was, 2012, early 20s, 2010s, vlogging as in like, videotaping, recording your life and all that stuff and throwing it on YouTube wasn't really a thing. It was more of a
Mm.
blog. And I don't know who would not know this, but a blog is basically like a website where you can post every single day and basically you can do whatever you want, right? You can talk about whatever you want, post about anything or whatever. So in 2012, she started a website or a blog called Lymphoma Can Suck It. So that's the name
Oh,
of her blog.
catchy.
Yes. So on this blog, she actually had this thing for 7 years. It was a 7-year cancer journey. She was
Oh.
very thorough and spoke about, the heartbreaks, the triumphs of like, when you have like, you're doing well and the treatment is working. But she also often spoke about what a huge financial burden this was on her family. Like, of course, like treatments are
Yeah.
expensive. She would talk, well, anyways, so this blog was spread widely by her community, friends, coworkers, and the kicker was she belonged to one of those mega Christian churches, those ones that you see
Ooh.
on TV and they like, have church on TV on Sundays. So she
Mhm.
belonged to one of those. So, through this community, like she often spoke about like the financial burden it took on her family because of these treatments and her cancer and things of that sort. So of course, what are people going to do? They're going to feel pity and empathy and just feel bad for this woman. She's only
Right.
27 years old and she's going through this such a big thing to go through
Yeah.
cancer. So literally the community did everything that you can think of to help this family. They helped babysit her kid. They gave her gift card for restaurants, cash checks, concerts, sports tickets. They even held like events like the San Francisco Giants and the San Jose Sharks, who are
Whoa.
huge local teams,
Yeah.
had like fundraisers. Like,
Oh my
so she's
gosh.
basically like raking in the dough from like this, her blog and like all the stuff that she would do. There's even stuff where celebrities like Leanne Rimes and Journey, the band, would like give her stuff to auction off for her
What the
treatment.
heck?
So it was a huge thing. And she would do something that I thought was kind of weird. And like, of course you can't find it anymore because her blog has been taken down. This whole thing has
Mhm,
gone to court and all that kind of stuff. But
mhm.
she would post things like almost like, say she got a gift card from a family, she would be like, take a picture of the gift card. Thank you to the Smith family for your generous, Applebee's gift card. And, you're buying us dinner tonight and like whatever else,
She's she's
she's so,
disclosing she was like
yeah.
the modern day, influencer disclosing her,
Yes,
donation.
her sponsors, the
Oh my
people that are, like,
god.
sponsoring her and stuff like that, and it
Uh-huh.
went so far that she even, like this is okay, so I in my notes, I put this as some of the crazy things that took place. So what
Cool.
she did things like, of course, like, she shaved her head, she
Oh.
pretended she was going to chemo, she falsified medical records, she forged physician documents, one of
What
the
the heck?
wildest, yeah, and we'll get into that. And kind of like I did research on like how does someone like get away with that type of thing.
Yeah.
But one of the craziest things that she often talked about on her blog was like these clinical trials. So they have
Mm,
those clinical trials where they're basically like experimental treatment that are
mhm.
not covered by your everyday insurance, that can help with whatever ailment or not ailment. This is huge. This is like a catastrophic disease. So it's basically like, they're going to do whatever treatments just to see if they're going to work. And they're not like, it's not for sure. And it's not like often not FDA approved. So therefore these come out of pocket, right? So she would
Mhm.
raise money for this at her church. People would give their travel miles because
What?
the treatments were in New York, like specifically, like she put that in her blog.
Oh.
So she's here in California. People would give her miles and fly her first class to New York for her treatments like every other week. This went on for like months and months. They
Wow.
would give up hotel stays. They would even give her tickets to Broadway shows so that she can like feel better and, do like
Oh,
fun stuff while she was there. So,
wow.
just stuff like that. So another crazy thing that took place while she was pregnant, I'm sorry, while she was sick, was that she got pregnant with her second child. So,
Mm,
all this, people were like, how is it possible? You're going through chemo, you have, all these experimental treatments. How are you getting pregnant? And, she would just kind of like skirt around the issue. And, she had a baby and it was perfectly healthy and all that. So that's another thing. But
it's just
so
like, "Oh, wow, you managed to give birth to a healthy
yeah,
baby. Go
it was like a
you."
miracle. She would
Yeah.
call it like her miracle baby. So
Jeez.
one of the things that I wanted to discuss is like, with her blog and then, Facebook is starting to come up or in Instagram is starting to come up at this time. Like how do you think like she would post photos of herself in the hospital, like getting treatments with medical equipment and stuff like that. Like how do you think she did that? Do you have a guess or any kind of like inkling? Because like this is one of the topics that people talk about all the time. Like, how did she do that? Like, she would literally post photos of herself in hospitals. Crazy.
What year are we talking
So
about?
this is like 2012, 2014, 2015. Like it went on for like 7 years.
I mean, buying medical things like, a gown and masks and, if you got the money, you can buy medical beds. You can
Yeah.
buy all of those things to
Yep.
make it look like you're in a hospital. Was she actually at a hospital?
Yeah, so this is what she used to do, which is I was just like, it's freaking smart, but man, like, why would you do this? Like, so she would like admit herself or go to the ER for things like fainting spells or dehydration. And they
Oh,
would tell the people like, oh, she's a cancer patient. So of course, like, they would kind of
let's
take
take care of
action.
her.
But
Yeah.
you are completely correct in saying that she would buy different gowns and like just
Mhm.
different things. And she's literally doing like a photo shoot inside the one, hospital or like there's a hospital room next to her that's empty. So she's going to hop on that with a different gown and take pictures for a different post. She would even do things like she would like change her nail color. So it wouldn't
She
look
was
like,
she
yeah.
was
So
batching content like
yes, yes,
all these
exactly. So,
influencers.
just stuff like medical, she would take pictures in the
Oh
hospital
my
with
god.
different types of medical equipment. And it's just like it was so easy to do. Like someone even posted like, this whole thing turned into a huge, topic of conversation, but like we would have nurses like chiming in, be like, "Look, I just walked by my floor. Take a picture. There's an open like huge storage cabinet with tons of gowns and blankets, and no one's monitoring that stuff.
Yeah.
Someone could just walk by and take it and do whatever, they needed with it. So it
Yeah,
was
and
just like
it's not like she's gonna post pictures of other patients because you can't do that. That's
right,
like
right.
HIPAA or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it wouldn't make sense for her to prove like, oh, there's other patients here and
Right, right.
whatever. She's only protecting other people's medical and
Yes,
whatever.
yes. And like what was so interesting was that people would comment like, you know, I mean, I hate to say this, but people that are seriously ill, they don't
Yeah.
look well, like they don't look healthy, right? Like,
Mhm.
they could be like kind of gaunt on the thinner side, like their
Yeah.
skin's not.
Because chemo is
She
no
was
joke.
not like that. She looked
Mm.
great. It was just that her head was shaved. So that was like her
Mm.
big thing, was that, the chemo and her hair would fall out and all that stuff. But otherwise, she looked perfectly healthy. So, she was going about
Mm.
and doing this for 7 years. So, and we'll talk about like, how she finally got caught. So I want to preface this by saying that like, what I'm talking about is just a very small amount of what was going on in Amanda's life during this time. She actually, had a lot of drama with like her ex-husband, or not her ex-husband, her husband's ex-wife. There was like a whole
Ooh.
custody thing. There was
Oh
just like all
gosh.
kinds of stuff that was going on in her life. And I'm not very clear on it. And I kind of tried to do research, but I don't know. So basically, what happened was an investigative journalist got a tip about Amanda Riley and she began investigating. What I'm not 100% sure of
Mm.
is how she got that tip. So one of the rumors is that, or theories is that, so her husband has an ex-wife and they have a child that is not even that much younger than Amanda herself. The man that she married was pretty significantly older than her, that like the ex-wife might have like, had questions and then tipped off this investigative reporter. And then it kind
Mhm.
of just spiraled from there. But basically, this reporter, she is actually the one that narrates the podcast, or is a big part of the podcast. So she started investigating. She started digging into things like, and I think not I think, but I had read that this investigative reporter, her sister had died of cancer. So she has a little bit of like experience and like
Right.
what a family would go through, or what a patient would go through. So
Right.
she
Mhm.
started calling the hospitals and calling the
Mm.
clinical trial place in New York. And, and of course, like they can't give out that information. Like they can't say that, like, oh, yeah, she's a patient here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I think that she wore someone down so much so that someone told her that, I can tell you she was not a patient here. So it was something like that. So they just started digging,
Ooh.
digging, digging, and all this stuff came up. And then she met a former police officer from the San Jose Police Department, who his thing was like investigating financial crimes. So he wasn't like a
Ooh.
murderer, like, that type of
Mhm.
crime or anything like that. So he did financial crimes. So she gave him all this information and then he turned it over to the IRS. So basically,
Ooh.
like it's crazy because I mean, all they could get her for after all this, like she's done like emotional damage to a lot of people. Like a lot
Yeah.
of people, supported her through the church, her coworkers. I mean, there was this woman that was heavily on the podcast that babysat her kids for free for like a couple of years because
Wow.
she felt sorry for them. And, they did
Right.
fundraisers, they did all, just all this kind of stuff. And she basically, all they could get her for was wire fraud of like $100,000. There's so much more to it. So I'll just
That's
say
it?
like there's so much more to this case. In the end, her when things started to kind of like wheels started falling off, what she was telling her supporters was that she made a mistake and did not pay taxes on the money donated to her. And that's
Yeah.
how like she kind of spun it, like she didn't know. Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to, when you guys gave me cash or checks or whatever, which I guess is like valid, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it
yeah,
just,
yeah.
of course there was like more to it. And it just like I read something like her supporters, some of them were so hardcore. So basically what happened was that she was indicted for all this stuff. She actually pled guilty to
Oh,
what they indicted her for, and she got like 5 years, 60 months in jail, which she is
oh.
serving right now, and she has like restitution to pay. So she definitely got in trouble, and was like lying and all that kind of stuff, but till the very end, like supporters were in the courtroom and could not believe. It was almost like, how the hell could you do this to this woman? She's been through so much in her life, and now you're going to put her in jail. And, because she was just like, her lies were just, I don't know. She was just spinning it so, so well. So,
So
yeah.
they weren't actually like investigating on whether she was actually sick. It was just the money part of the whole thing.
Well, I think they were. I think that that's what she told people, is that she was being investigated by the IRS for not paying taxes. But I
Hmm.
think that she was being investigated for fraud, for like telling people that she had cancer and then deceiving them into giving her that money. So it's complicated. There's a lot to it, and this is just this podcast is like an 8 episode 1 hour, and we're trying, I'm explaining it to you guys in like 10 minutes, but there's like a lot to it. But I just thought it would like blew my mind.
That's
Ab and I were
crazy.
like so hooked on this podcast. So yeah, so the resolution is at this point she's serving her time. She's
Hmm.
in Texas. That's where the prison is or whatever. And yeah, her husband, nothing happened to her husband. So that's like one of the biggest questions that people had, is like, did he know? Of course, like how could the husband not know, right? Like
Yeah.
he got off like complete, like Scott, they call it scot free or whatever. Like nothing
Yeah.
happened to the husband. Claims he didn't know what she was doing. Her parents, who of course, like were with her every step of the way, or some
Sure.
stuff like that, are still supporting her and are like pretty devastated at like what took place. So yeah, that's how this one has a resolution. It's wrapped up, but it's just like, I encourage everyone, like it's called Scamanda. I'll put a link to it in our description, but it's on Spotify and Apple, and it's good. It's just like kind of crazy. Like one of the questions people have is like, why? Like, why do you, it's very, Mon, I think it's really similar to like Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose. Like there's a whole thing where they think they just do it for attention. Like it's
Hmm.
similar, right? Like, what do you, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you're getting money, but like, there's got to be more to it psychologically than just some Applebee's gift cards,
Right, right, right. Because then, like, I'm sure she didn't get money in the beginning, but she probably enjoyed the feeling of all the sympathy and
Mhm.
support from strangers she didn't know. And, you know, if she was seeking that and it so happened to come with money and she didn't stop it, like,
Right, right.
we gotta give the people what they want.
Yeah,
And,
it's
like,
almost like an added perk,
yeah.
to like the attention that she was already getting, was to get a couple bucks. But like, man, they gave like, I part of the, one of the episodes is like, you know what mega churches are, and how many people go to them, how much money they generate. Like they would have collections for her
Mm.
separately, like for like months and months or years or whatever. So she was definitely like, profiting from this. But yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
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 that
and to only have been, caught for not paying taxes, like,
right, right.
uh, I guess in her case versus Gypsy and Dee Dee's case is that technically she wasn't hurting anybody. It was just all a facade, but she wasn't hurting
Truthful.
anyone else. She was just, yeah, just lying about her life. In
Yeah.
this case situation for Gypsy and Dee Dee was actually hurting her
Right,
daughter.
right. Yeah.
And,
Yes, yes, yeah. Someone was
so
like physically being hurt, and at the very end someone died for it as well. So it's
right.
definitely like much more intense, but it's also like, I when you were like reading all this stuff, I was like, "Oh my god, this is not too far off," because it's basically just people lying
Yeah.
about like, whatever ailments that they had, which is just insane.
Oh gosh, that's crazy. I still have to listen to that one myself. So, yeah, if you haven't checked it out like myself, we'll link it all down below.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
after you listen to it, or if you have heard about it, let us know your thoughts because
yeah.
the case is crazy, at least
This
from
is
what
just
I've heard.
like, this happens, like, it's in the bay, you guys. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's anywhere, and it's recent. Like, she was, I think that they indicted her in 2020, and she pled guilty in 2022. So it's just like
Mm,
it's a fresh case. So
right.
yeah.
That was a good one. Definitely not scary kind, but
Yeah. Hope you guys like those. Those are different, but I think they're, for me, I find them like super interesting. So
definitely, definitely. Well, okay, so that's pretty much all we had for this episode. We hope you enjoyed, even though it's not like the Halloween spooky season.
yeah.
I know there's some people out there who love their true crime episodes. So, if you have any true crimes that you want us to like look into and to cover,
Yeah, highlight. Yeah,
as long as
definitely.
they're
Like,
not
let us
too
know.
creepy like these ones, I'd be willing to do this more than twice a year.
Yes, yes. If you've listened till the end of this episode, comment, let us know what you think, send us a DM, or leave us an emoji. What possible kind of emojis could someone leave for this? A gift card, perhaps? A laptop? A cell
Oh
phone?
gosh.
But
Oh
yeah, let
my
us know. We hope
gosh.
you've listened to the end because they're pretty good stories. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, don't forget to follow, rate, and subscribe to our podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Threads. Check us out there, chat with us, especially for these cases. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So ask your questions, chat with us. We'd love to hear them.
all right. So until next time, OAers, stay OA.
In the best way.
Bye.
Bye.